Hey, welcome to my channel. Let's discuss about the second season of Rings of Power, basically, which is on Amazon Prime. A lot of it definitely sways away from the appendix of Lord of the Rings, the trilogy, the books, basically. I mean, I found it interesting though, the second season, quite honestly, to the fact that I love this backstory of how they're basically talking of how, or not describe it, but more so the history, the backstory of the rings themselves, how they were forged, as well as Sauron as well too. The one thing that I'm still not too happy about is the aspect of the Sauron interaction with Galadriel, basically, to the point where like, if they had this backstory, why did we not see it during the trilogy of, or even read it in the trilogy? Now, mind you, it's been so long since I've read the trilogy that I'm now basing it off the movies. I mean, to be honest, as well as the old shows, the old cartoon movies, a lot of them are blending in that I don't even remember all the details, quite honestly. So, like, I might mix in things here and there. So, honestly, but I don't recall or remember Galadriel and Sauron having this history. To the point where, like, even Galadriel at one point almost fell in love with them. It seems like, anyways. Or Sauron was willing to have her be his queen, essentially. And the fact that we don't see this, like as far as emphasized a little bit in the trilogy, but also to the point where, like, Elrond as well too, kind of threw me off a little bit as well too, to the point where, like, Elrond having this kind of power as well too, not this kind of power, but more so one of the, almost at one point, one of the ring bearers, eventually giving it back to Galadriel, realizing that the ring had to stay with it because the fact is like without the ring, Sauron's dark magic would have taken her basically at that point. It's similar to Sauron's ring with um, Frodo, basically. So makes sense from that perspective. But it's kind of in that wonderment of how that whole aspect with Elrond, Galadriel, and that dynamic with the fact that they apparently knew Sauron or worked with Sauron, but knew Sauron to the point where like they were aware, like his backstory and such, and when he was before he became the Dark Lord or still was the Dark Lord, but how uh, the rings were forged and such, and then of course there's Gandalf as well too, where basically he was called the Grand Elf. I mean, seems like he was. It'll be interesting to see how season 3 and 4 goes along to the point where, like, the fact is like Gandalf also has interactions with Sauron as well too. Kind of wondering like, okay, how does this all work out from that perspective? I mean, Sauron had all this power, but I mean, honestly, it's like it's still throwing me off a little bit with season 2, to the point where, like, I'm not saying I didn't not dislike it, but I'm not going to say I thoroughly was enamored by it like the trilogy movies they were. I mean, granted, it's a matter of interpretation or adaptation from everything into screenwriting at that point. So I understand that. I mean, honestly, I do like that. I like I said, I do like the aspect of how there's the backstory of the rings themselves and how Sauron came to power. That's pretty interesting in itself, basically, because quite honestly, I didn't realize that Sauron was a manipulator of that from that perspective. I mean, a master manipulator is really impressive in and of itself, basically. So I was like, and the fact that he's able to devise plans, pretty much like a grand chess master almost, which is pretty impressive. Which comes to the fact that most likely that, um, so Gandalf most likely probably outwitted Sauron to cause his downfall in a way. I don't know. It's hard to say, but it'll be interesting to see the remaining scenes how that works out. But I'll say this: do I recommend watching The Rings of Power? Yes. If you haven't really read the books per se, then yes, by all means watch it because it's kind of interesting. But don't think along the lines of this being the prequel to the trilogy movies because there's a lot of facets that are not intertwined with the trilogy itself, but yet are at the same time. So think about it along those lines as well too. But with that, I'll leave it at that. Now, I do ask that if you do like this video, hit the like button. And if you like more of these video contents of me reviewing shows and movies, the like button basically shows what I should be focusing on. I also ask that you could hit the subscribe button if you can. If you haven't subscribed. And with that, I'll leave it at that. Of course, I would love to know your comments and thoughts about this as well too with my review and like with the second season. I'd love to hear your thoughts about that. I do read my comments as I say, and I do respond to them all. So when they warrant a response, that is. But with that, I'll leave it at that. Unfiltered, unedited, and of course, always unrehearsed. Until next time.